So, I want you to imagine standing in a crowded room.
Oh, man. That classic nightmare scenario.
Right. People all around you are just talking, laughing, effortlessly exchanging ideas, and you know exactly what you want to add to the conversation.
Yeah, like the thoughts are perfectly formed in your mind.
Exactly. Perfectly formed. But when you try to actually open your mouth, nothing comes out. The words are just, they're trapped somewhere between your brain and your vocal cords. You are entirely, completely frozen in silent mode.
It is such a paralyzing experience. I mean, you essentially feel locked out of human connection, just kind of watching the interaction happen through a thick glass window.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this deep dive right now, chances are you know that exact feeling, or you are actively trying to overcome it right now.
Absolutely.
So today we are digging into a really fascinating text called The Path to English Fluency, a step-by-step guide. But look, we need to reset expectations immediately.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Because the reason you are frozen in that crowded room has absolutely nothing to do with a lack of vocabulary or, some misunderstanding of verb conjugations.
Right. It's not about the grammar.
No, this guide basically proves that the barrier to fluency isn't grammatical at all. It is entirely psychological. Achieving fluency is really about courage, micro habits, and breaking down those invisible mental barriers that keep you silent.
It's a total mindset shift.
It is.
Oh.
Okay, let's unpack this because the actual path to speaking fluently is going to challenge almost every traditional assumption we have about how learning works.
Yeah, so to even understand how to speak, we first have to analyze the underlying mechanics of why people don't speak.
Right. What's actually stopping them?
Exactly. And the text points out this profound truth right at the very beginning. Fluency is not just some academic acquisition of language. It is really a process of becoming a stronger version of yourself.
Wow, a stronger version of yourself.
Yeah, because the main barrier holding people back is that they wait to be perfect before they even try. They just sit on the sidelines waiting to master everything mentally. And the guide points out that in that waiting period, they literally lose years of their lives.
Just waiting to feel ready. And the root of that waiting is fear, right?
100% fear.
The text is very explicit about this. Fear of judgment just entirely kills fluency. People hold back because there's this super loud internal voice asking, well, what if they laugh at me?
What if I sound stupid?
Right. What if I say something wrong and look totally foolish? We are so worried about projecting intelligence through perfect grammar that we forget the one absolute prerequisite for language.
Which is courage.
Courage. Exactly. You do not need perfect grammar to speak English. You just need the courage to literally make a sound.
And the guide offers this really crucial mindset shift to help dismantle that fear. It instructs you to stop saying, I am afraid to speak, and replace it with, I am learning to speak.
I like that. It's a subtle tweak.
It sounds similar, but cognitively, they create entirely different realities for your brain. The text asks you to observe how a child learns their very first language.
Oh, the toddler example, yeah.
Yeah. If a toddler points at a dog and says cat, or, uses the wrong verb tense, do adults point and laugh at them?
I mean, I hope not. No, of course not.
Right. Do they mock the child for poor syntax? No.
You smile. You encourage them. You celebrate the fact that they're even trying to communicate at all.
Exactly. So the guide poses this really pointed question. Why are you so relentlessly hard on yourself? You are learning. You have to treat yourself with that exact same grace.
You really do.
You have to create internal permission to make mistakes without, just shutting down the entire operation.
Okay, so that makes sense conceptually, but looking at it practically, there is a bit of a paradox here.
Okay, how so?
Well, logically, how can you feel confident if you know you aren't good yet? I mean, if I know I lack the skill, summoning this bold confidence to speak in front of native speakers feels almost, well, delusional.
Right, yeah. What's fascinating here is the text flips that entire assumption upside down.
Yeah.
It actually addresses that exact paradox.
Okay.
As adults, we think we need to feel confident before we initiate an action.
Right.
We want the safety net of competence before we take the leap. But the truth revealed in the guide is that confidence does not precede speaking.
It comes after.
Yes, confidence is a byproduct of speaking.
So the expectation that you will eventually just quote unquote feel ready is a total trap. You essentially have to go into the conversation scared.
You have to speak with a shaking voice first. The guide is entirely unapologetic about this. You have to be willing to feel nervous, to feel shy, to feel completely out of your depth.
Even if your voice is physically shaken.
Yes, your voice might literally tremble.
Yeah.
And the text says, that is okay. You push the sentence out anyway.
Wow.
The act of speaking through that physiological fear response is the very mechanism that builds the confidence for your next conversation.
So courage is essentially the toll you have to pay on the road to confidence. There's no detour around the discomfort.
None at all.
So once you actually muster up that courage, once you accept the shaking voice, you need a system for where to direct that energy.
Right. Which brings us to the actual mechanics of relearning how to learn.
Because what we usually do isn't working.
Exactly. The text argues that most adults try to learn language through the totally wrong pathways. It wants you to completely mirror the progression of how a child acquires their native tongue.
Which begins entirely with input, right?
Pure input.
Yeah.
You start by listening to simple English, specifically slow speech. Phrases like, I am going to the market.
And the crucial directive here is not just to consume that audio passively. Like, you don't just put it on in the background.
No.
You listen to the sound, you absorb the rhythm, and then you must repeat it out loud. You cannot stay silent.
The physical repetition is completely non-negotiable because your body needs to learn, not just your brain.
Wait, your body?
Yeah. When you are learning a new language, your tongue and your vocal cords are literally being asked to form geometric shapes and physical movements they have never made before.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I never thought about it like a physical workout.
It really is. Silent reading does absolutely nothing for physical articulation. You repeat the simple, slow speech so your mouth builds muscle memory while your brain adjusts to the new auditory patterns.
And the scheduling of this practice is where the guide really shifts the paradigm for me, because it emphasizes consistency over intensity.
It's just huge.
15 minutes every single day is profoundly more effective than, say, cramming for an hour on Sunday and doing nothing for the rest of the week.
Oh, absolutely. The brain just cannot metabolize massive amounts of language data in a single sitting. If you cram, your brain treats English like an academic subject to be memorized for a test and then just discarded.
Right. It's kind of like crash dieting versus taking a daily 15-minute walk. The crash diet might feel like you're doing a lot of work, but the daily walk actually changes your baseline health.
That is a perfect analogy. Daily brief exposure is a form of cognitive drip feeding. You are basically tricking your brain into adopting English as a background operating system.
Which perfectly sets up the next major phase in the guide. Because once you establish that daily rhythm of listening and physically repeating, a massive mental shift has to occur.
The big one.
You have to start thinking in English.
Yes.
And reading this, I was amazed by how simple but incredibly difficult it is to break the habit of internal translation. Because right now, for most learners, the process looks like this. You look at an object, your brain pulls up the word in your native tongue, you search your memory for the English equivalent, you mentally verify the grammar.
And then you finally command your mouth to speak.
Exactly. It's exhausting.
And that multi-step translation process is exactly why people freeze in that crowded room we talked about earlier.
Yes.
The guide highlights that translating takes time and creates massive cognitive friction. You are essentially trying to run two complex linguistic operating systems simultaneously.
It's just too much processing power.
Right. It causes a mental lag. The text insists you have to bypass the native language entirely. You train your internal monologue to react to the world in English.
So practically, how does that look?
Well, you look at a glass of water on the table, and you don't translate it from your mother tongue. You just look at the object and think, this is a glass.
Just direct observation.
Yeah. You walk outside into the summer air, and you just think, the weather is hot.
It's so funny. Translating in your head is like driving a manual car, but constantly looking down at the gear shift instead of the road.
Oh, yeah.
You are processing the mechanics instead of reacting to your environment, and eventually you just stall out. So thinking in English is building that automatic muscle memory so you can just keep your eyes on the road. You are literally rewiring your brain's immediate default reaction to the world.
And those tiny isolated thoughts seem so insignificant, but they are slowly training the neural pathways to operate in English by default. You're removing the middleman of your native language.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because you are doing this internal rewiring with, simple observations about glasses of water and the weather, but how do you take that isolated internal monologue and scale it up into an actual outward conversation with another human being?
Right, without totally overwhelming yourself.
Exactly.
The guide uses a really grounding metaphor for this expansion. It compares language construction to building a house.
I love this part.
A major reason adults fail at language is ego. They have complex, sophisticated thoughts in their native language, so they try to build the roof of the English house on day one.
Right, they want to sound as smart in English as they do in their native tongue.
Exactly. They attempt to speak in these large, complex sentences right out of the gate.
And the text explicitly warns against this. If you try to jump straight to complex sentences, the cognitive load is just too heavy. You will likely fail, you will feel embarrassed, and the resulting shame will just make you quit.
It's a vicious cycle.
So the guide tells you to start with bricks. Small, fundamental sentences. I am tired. I am happy. I like tea.
Yeah. A single brick doesn't look like much, but one brick at a time is the only way to build a structurally sound house.
Step by step.
Once you have piled these foundational bricks, the text explains how to scale up naturally using really simple connectors. Words like and, but, and because.
Oh, okay.
So you take the brick, I am tired, and you connect it to another thought. I am tired, but I will work.
Right.
Instantly, you have moved from isolated vocabulary to natural flowing speech.
And that structural evolution naturally leads to storytelling. The guide actually outlines a progression of how this growth looks over time, and it is incredibly reassuring because it proves that progress doesn't require perfection.
Not at all.
Like on day one, a learner might just say, I go school, which, is grammatically broken, but it successfully communicates the idea. It is a brick.
A totally valid brick. And according to the text progression, by day 10, that rough brick gets refined into I go to school. By day 30, it expands to I go to school every day. And by day 60, using those connectors we just discussed, it evolves into a full narrative. I go to school every day because I want to learn.
That's amazing. I go school on day one is a massive victory compared to just remaining silent out of fear.
Exactly.
And while you are laying these bricks, the guide addresses this obsession a lot of learners have with pronunciation and accents. The mandate here is super clear. Prioritize clarity over style.
Yes. Learners often get caught up in trying to mimic native speakers perfectly, trying to adopt a specific regional accent or speaking very fast to sound fluent.
They want to sound cool.
Right. And the text strongly advises against this. Do not mumble your words trying to sound casual or sophisticated. Do not use slang contractions like gonna or wanna right out of the gate. Say going to, say want to.
Because the goal is just to open your mouth and let the sound come out clearly so the listener understands your intent. Speed and stylistic flair will naturally develop over time.
They'll happen on their own, yeah.
But chasing style before clarity just leads to miscommunication.
The foundation of the house must be clear communication.
So the temptation here, once you realize you need all these bricks to build your house, is to assume you need to go memorize a dictionary. I mean, do I need to read the dictionary to get enough bricks? Shouldn't I try to stockpile thousands of obscure words so I am prepared for any conversation?
It feels like you should, right? But the source aggressively pushes back on that instinct. It states you do not need to memorize difficult, complex vocabulary. You just need useful vocabulary.
The basics.
The everyday verbs and nouns that govern daily life. Eat, drink, go, come, sleep. The text reveals a crucial truth about acquisition here. Words do not become yours when you simply read them on a page or highlight them in a book.
They don't stick.
Right. Words only become yours when you actively use them in context.
Which leads to one of the most actionable pieces of advice in the entire guide, the 1-minute practice. It is such a simple constraint, but it basically forces you to use the vocabulary you actually possess.
I love the 1-minute practice. It requires you to pick one basic topic, for example, food, and speak out loud about it for just 60 seconds.
Just 1 minute.
Yeah. You might say, I like food. I like rice. I eat rice every day. My favorite food is biryani. I eat it with my family.
Super basic.
Extremely basic. And then the next day, you pivot to the topic of family. My family is important to me. I love my parents. It sounds so simple. But doing this for 1 minute every single day forces your brain to retrieve and contextualize the bricks you already have.
It prevents you from getting frustrated by the vocabulary you don't know yet, and it builds fluency from the ground up. But building this house and laying these bricks day after day requires you to actually show up to the construction site when that initial excitement fades.
And that is where so many people drop off. We are transitioning here from the mechanics of language to the discipline of systems.
Right.
Because motivation is entirely unreliable.
It really is. It comes and goes.
Exactly. So the text outlines a daily habit micro-routine designed to bypass the need for motivation altogether.
Right. It breaks the day into highly manageable chunks. 10 minutes in the morning dedicated solely to listening, 10 minutes in the afternoon for outward speaking practice, perhaps just, talking to yourself in a mirror, and then 10 minutes in the evening for thinking in English.
That is 30 minutes total.
Yeah, but dispersed throughout the day to keep the cognitive load really light and the consistency high.
And integrated into this system is the practice of writing. The guide notes that physically writing down small sentences like "I woke up early" or "I ate breakfast" serves a really vital function. It organizes the chaos of your thoughts.
It gets it out of your head.
Yes,
Mhm.
it creates a tangible, physical record of your internal monologue. That physical act of writing clarifies the structure, which in turn makes the outward verbal speaking so much easier.
But the guide also issues a really stark warning about a modern trap that almost everyone falls into when they try to learn a new skill. It is the trap of resource hoarding.
Oh, this is so common.
The rule is explicit. Do not collect, apply.
It's essentially a form of intellectual procrastination. People will bookmark hundreds of instructional videos, they'll download a dozen different language apps, and buy stacks of grammar textbooks.
Guilty.
Right. But they never actually sit down to practice speaking.
It's like buying 5 different gym memberships and a bunch of expensive workout gear, but you never actually lift a single weight. Surrounding yourself with the tools of language does not make you fluent.
The content itself does not create the skill. The guide states that one single video, or one small lesson applied daily, is entirely sufficient.
Just one.
You do not need endless resources. You need discipline. Discipline is what takes over when motivation inevitably evaporates.
Because it will evaporate.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There will be days when you're tired, frustrated, and have zero desire to practice. Discipline dictates that you do the 10 minutes anyway.
And the text uses a great analogy for this, patience. The journey to fluency is like planting a seed. When you plant a seed in the ground, you water it daily. What you absolutely do not do is dig it up out of the dirt every single morning to check if the roots are growing.
Digging it up disrupts the very process of growth. You just have to trust the unseen process.
Which is hard.
It is. The guide cautions that learning is not a linear upward trajectory. You will have days where you feel entirely stuck, where the words just refuse to come out. And when that happens, do not panic. Do not uproot the seed.
You just return to the foundational habit.
Exactly. Listen a bit more. Speak your small one-brick sentences. Just keep watering the dirt.
And most importantly, when you face those moments of friction, do not retreat back into the safety of silence. Because the guide's ultimate mandate is that broken English is vastly superior to silent English.
100%.
If you say, "I go market yesterday," just get the words out into the air. You can correct it later. You can realize it should have been, "I went to the market yesterday." But the victory is in the fact that you spoke.
Because every time you make an error, recognize it and correct it, the neurological pathway gets stronger. The mistake is not a failure of fluency. The mistake is the raw material that builds the fluency.
So what does this all mean? If we step back from the micro habits and the daily routines and look at the entire step-by-step journey the guide lays out, what is the actual arc of transformation here?
Well, the true arc is a transition from fear to freedom. You begin the journey completely terrified of external judgment. But you counter that fear by utilizing simple discipline, just 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, to implement tiny, manageable habits.
Right.
You systematically train your brain to stop translating in your head.
Yeah.
You accept the humility of building small brick sentences instead of trying to sound sophisticated.
Yeah.
And you relentlessly push through the discomfort of making mistakes.
And eventually, if you maintain that discipline, you arrive at a moment the text described as a quiet, subtle victory. You'll be going about your day in a completely normal situation, and a sentence will just leave your mouth naturally.
Without even thinking about it.
You won't translate it first. You won't struggle to find the verb. You will just speak.
The friction just entirely disappears.
It just happens. And in that brief moment, you realize that all those hundreds of tiny, messy, uncomfortable, shaking voice sessions of practice have finally compounded into actual fluency.
And that realization is the ultimate promise this text makes to you, the listener. It promises that if you commit to this path, you are accomplishing far more than just acquiring a second language.
It's so much deeper than that.
It really is. By actively forcing yourself to speak when your voice is shaking, and by choosing to face the fear of judgment every single day instead of hiding from it, you are dismantling your own fear. You are actively building your future. You are transforming your identity.
You evolve into a person who refuses to wait for perfect conditions before taking action. Which really leaves us with a provocative thought to consider as we wrap up. If the fundamental secret to language fluency is having the courage to embrace broken progress, to force yourself to start speaking long before you actually feel confident, what other areas of your life are currently stuck in silent mode just because you're waiting for the perfect time to begin?
Wow. That is a question that applies to almost every ambition we hold back on.
It really is. Something to mull over as you go about your day. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Start laying those bricks, trust the unseen process of the seed, and we will catch you next time.